Don't even ask, hey, do you want me to do this? Just do it. You can't raise a baby by yourself and you need help. Everything feels completely normal. It really just brings me back to a very dark place. You are the perfect mom for your baby. I was peeing postpartum. In today's video, I am sharing my 4th trimester recap. If you don't know, the 4th trimester is just known as the 12 weeks after you have your baby. And for me, this is a video that I have been waiting to film for a while because I don't want it to scare anyone who's about to have a baby, and I don't want to come off as negative in any way, because truly looking back on it, I would do it again and again and again. But looking back, there are so many things I would have done differently. There are so many ways that I would have prepared myself, my body. I just think that I have a lot of advice to share for someone who's gone through it, for someone who dealt with postpartum anxiety and definitely did not have the kind of sunshine and rainbows newborn bliss experience. And so I felt like it was important to share. But also, like everything that I've been sharing so far with motherhood, I want you to know if your 4th trimester is just tougher than you expected and you feel like you're really going through it, that you are not alone. It is totally normal. It doesn't make it any easier to go through it, but I just want you to know that you are not crazy. I also have this video broken out into a bunch of different sections. If you want to just skip to a certain timestamp, I'm going to talk about physical healing, breastfeeding, postpartum anxiety that I dealt with, kind of boundaries and things that I do differently. And then I'm also going to try to finish with a Q&A for questions that I asked for over on Instagram. I also want to say, if you are in a place where you're trying to protect your peace, you totally don't have to watch this video, because I am going to be sharing about postpartum anxiety and just some of the struggles that I dealt with. But I will say that it ends on a very positive note. Just wanted to say that ahead of time, because I think it's so important, whether you're watching, you know, birth experiences or anything surrounding pregnancy and postpartum, to kind of know what you want to consume. And so I just want to be upfront about that in the beginning. To start, just an overview if you're new to my channel or you haven't really seen any of my pregnancy content. I had a really smooth pregnancy. I loved being pregnant. I loved, you know, having all of the growth. I loved feeling my son, all of his movements. I just felt such a connection with Connor when he was in the womb. And I've also shared my whole labor and delivery story, and although it was lengthy and there were definitely tough parts, I think that overall I had a pretty smooth labor and delivery. I didn't have any kind of birth trauma or anything like that. And so for me, the postpartum time really caught me off guard, because up until this point, things had just felt really, really smooth. Essentially, after I had Connor, I had a day of just complete bliss. I remember that night, I didn't sleep at all. I just stared at him all night because he was so beautiful. I couldn't believe everything that I had just went through. I couldn't believe that he was our son, and I still kind of had all of those hormones from pregnancy, and I hadn't experienced that drop yet. And so I just felt like I was on cloud 9. Starting off with physical healing, because I think that that's the first thing that I went through. I am so thankful that I had a very smooth physical healing. I didn't tear at all. I did have a couple of minor abrasions, but my kind of healing process physically was really, really smooth. Everything feels completely normal at this point. For me, the physical healing was the thing I was most nervous about. I didn't even think about the mental healing. And so I was really thankful in this way that everything did kind of go back to normal per se. When it came to postpartum bleeding, I did bleed for quite a bit of time. I bled for the full 6 weeks, and it would stop for a little bit and then come back. I also got my period back, I'm pretty sure, during this time, but it's confusing whenever you have your bleeding during postpartum, because you're like, is this just my postpartum bleeding or is this my period? Very, very confusing. But that was something that I wasn't expecting to bleed for very long, but for me, I knew it lasted for a while. Everyone's different with that. I did have a lot of soreness after, I think, especially because my birth was unmedicated. It was a lot of me like physically using my body to push my baby out. And so I did have some physical healing in terms of my hips were sore, my arms, my legs. It was kind of like the biggest workout I've ever done. That all felt pretty much back to normal after a week. I do think that I have some pelvic floor weakness that I would like to work on, but for the most part, physical healing went really well. I will say, when it came to kind of postpartum products that I really liked, I loved the Frida boy shorts. Those were super comfy. And then also kind of the ice pack Frida pads. I used those a lot, but Besides that, I liked also having a bunch of different variety of pads, because some days it would be heavier, some days it would be lighter. I didn't end up wearing full-on diapers. I really liked just having pads within the Frida boy shorts. Those were really comfy. Going into breastfeeding, initially when we tried to latch, it just wasn't working. During this time, I was still kind of on that high after having him, and so it wasn't something that I was really stressed about. We waited a few hours, and then I remember we got him to latch probably close to like 1 a.m. and so I felt good. I felt like things were going well. And then Sunday, whenever we were leaving the hospital, the pediatrician came in to kind of look over Connor and check everything, and she said everything looked great. But I remember she turned to me and she said, "How has breastfeeding been going?" She said, "I noticed that he has a really severe tongue and lip tie." I didn't really know a ton about lip ties, tongue ties, all that. And even now, I think that there are kind of mixed opinions on this. You can research in terms of revising tongue ties, revising lip ties. Essentially, they're just different things that can make it tough for a baby to latch. That was just something that we kept an eye out for. And then I remember that night, whenever we got home, the first night, my milk came in. Whenever you first have your baby, you have colostrum, which is totally everything that they need, but your milk comes in a few days later. And I remember I got so engorged after that. And breastfeeding was one of those things that I had heard some people struggled with, but I definitely did not get the extent of what that can look like. We had multiple meetings with a lactation consultant, and essentially whenever you're meeting with a lactation consultant, I would highly recommend doing this. You weigh your baby and then you nurse, and then you weigh them again to see how many ounces they're getting. And so essentially after that, we started doing triple feeding, which is where you nurse and you also pump and you feed your baby a bottle. It's a pretty kind of demanding thing to keep up for the long term, but we did that for a little bit. We saw multiple lactation consultants. We got his lip tie, his tongue tie revised. We went to the chiropractor. We did cranial sacral therapy, all these things that I wasn't even aware of before I had him. And I'm going to keep this part short because this is not the experience for everyone. I think that I had just heard a lot from other people who had kind of more of an easy breezy breastfeeding experience, but I think a lot of times people don't share that it doesn't look like that. And whether you push through and you make it work or you find another way to feed your baby, I just want you to know that it's going to work out. And even the fact that I'm sharing this right now, I can't believe, because this is something that I felt very insecure about. I didn't want to share it, but now here at 5 months postpartum, it's something that I've come to terms with. It's not an emotional thing. My baby is, you know, happy, healthy. He has never gotten any major sickness besides colds with being a November baby, and we're in a good place, and I'm really thankful for that. I shared more about this journey in a different video that I'll link, and honestly there isn't a lot that I think I would do differently looking back in this area. I think one thing was just having my pump supplies on hand. I think that that would have been really helpful. I had my pump, but I was waiting to order the right size flanges till after, because they say that boobs can change size and so you should wait. But then it was pretty stressful in the moment when he was dropping weight really quickly, wanting to get those in. I just wish that I would have had kind of multiple sizes on hand before. And that right there was the thing that I think really started my postpartum anxiety, seeing your baby just drop weight really quickly. This is another reason why I've been putting off filming this, because it really just brings me back to a very dark place that seeing your baby drop weight super quickly is not fun. And for me, this really kind of started a very unhealthy pattern of being super anxious about my baby. Not to the point where naturally I think as a first-time mom, it's healthy to worry about your baby, to have those fears to an extent of wanting to protect your baby. Even some of those intrusive thoughts that a lot of people have, I think to some extent are your body's way of getting you to protect your baby. Those first 2 months specifically, the amount of scrolling I did, the amount of worrying I did, the amount of doctor's appointments we went to because I was convinced that something was wrong with my baby. Looking back, I remember people were telling me that he was perfectly fine, he was perfectly healthy, multiple doctors that we went to, but I had convinced myself in my head that something was wrong. It was truly terrible. When he was sleeping, I would be Googling, I would be looking up, is it normal that this 2-week-old baby's doing this? It was truly such a dark time. I couldn't even enjoy, you know, those early months because I was constantly worrying. This really started from seeing him drop weight really quickly and feeling like I was failing him as a mom. And I think it's important to mention too that whenever you have a baby, The hormone drop that you experience, I think, is the largest that any human experiences. Progesterone and estrogen, both of these hormones decrease as soon as the baby and the placenta are delivered. You do have a surge of oxytocin, but as that exits your body, I think that that can contribute to baby blues, which is just feeling a little bit sad after you have your baby. And I think that combined with me stopping breastfeeding pretty early, which also does a number on your hormones, I was honestly a wreck. It got so bad that Aiden would take my phone for a week on end, so I couldn't Google things. I'm really thankful that with my midwives, you actually had a 2-week postpartum appointment and a 6-week, because I think waiting till 6 weeks is crazy. I mean, if I hadn't gone to that 2-week appointment, I would just be in a much worse place, because I really opened up and got resources to help. And slowly over the course of a few months, that really went away. Now I don't have any of those fears. I'm enjoying my baby, and I'll kind of share more about that area later on. But I just want you to know, if you're feeling that way after you have your baby, to get help, open up to people, and to get medical help too. While you're not alone in feeling that way, you don't deserve to sit in that. And I can just say that it really made my healing experience much better once I actually got help. When it came to boundaries postpartum, this was something that I had heard a lot of people talk about, you know, how many guests you would like to have over, if you want anyone in the hospital. And I think that this is a really good thing to think about before you have a baby, and also make sure your significant other is in the place where they can kind of uphold those boundaries. But for me, I loved having people over. I needed people to be over. I needed people to talk me out of very dark places. And so I liked that my family was here. I can just say my mom especially, she stayed with us a week after we had Connor and made us meals, and she would help in the middle of the night, and she is just such a gem. I love my mom so much, but especially after having a baby and becoming a mom, you realize, you know, how much you appreciate that from your mom especially. And so I'm so thankful for her, but everyone's different. I thought that I might not want anyone over, but I was really thankful to have guests come over. And if you have a friend or a sibling who's having a baby, my number one piece of advice is just to do things, just to drop off food, to come clean their house, to hire a cleaner to clean their house. I think a lot of times after you have a baby, it's hard to make decisions. Just having someone do things without asking, just dropping off food without saying anything, not coming in, I think is so sweet. Don't even ask, hey, do you want me to do this? Just do it. That would mean so much. Having home cooked meals was so nice. Sleep is another thing that I focused on a lot. Of course, you hear about how you're never gonna sleep again after you have a baby. It's very shocking. I was never someone who like needed 8 hours every single night. I could get by with 6. I was fine with that. I'm pretty good to just keep rolling on. But it is definitely a shock going from, especially as a first-time mom, going from having sleep to not having any sleep. And I really believe that some babies just sleep more than others. And for a while, I focused on all the things to try to get my baby to sleep, quote, better. But at the end of the day, your baby is a baby, and it is totally normal for them to wake up very often in the night. And I'm saying this because I have only really seen people share their baby sleep whenever their babies sleep really well. For a while, I obsessed over that. And I'm sorry if you knew me in real life, I kind of made that my entire brand, not sleeping. Know that one day your baby is going to sleep. But I think it's really helpful if you can do shifts with your spouse. I never thought I would do that, but for me, that just saved me. Aiden will take half the night, I'll take the other. That was one of the positive parts of bottle feeding, that I just went ahead and said, hey, I'm gonna take it because I need to sleep a little bit. And that was really life-changing, just getting a 4-hour stretch whenever I needed it. That first night home, whenever we would try to lay him down in his bedside bassinet, he did not want to sleep on the bassinet. I mean, your baby's so used to being all cozy in your womb, tucked into you. They only want to sleep on you, and that is totally normal. And I remember that was so shocking to me. It took so long to even be able to set him down in the bassinet. If your baby wakes up often, you've only heard from babies who sleep through the night, just know I am with you. And if you're up at 3 a.m., chances are I am also up with you. And that's something that helped me too, is just remembering that there are so many other moms who are up too. Okay, I just fed Connor, and I was thinking that I didn't even touch on body image and just your body changing postpartum. I think I forgot to talk about it because I've been talking about it in quite a few of my vlogs lately, but yeah, my body does not look the same as it used to. I still have loose skin on my stomach. Totally normal to have those body changes. You literally just had a baby, and Never want to put pressure on myself to kind of get back in it. I'm just now getting back into working out, and I'm 5 months postpartum. That used to be a huge part of my life. Yeah, just be gentle with yourself and know that it takes time. Things I would have done differently during my kind of 4th trimester was use my phone less, get off Google. I now know if we're able to have a second child that I am not going to freak out about things that are totally normal. I'm not going to search on Reddit every single thing, search if it's normal that my 3-week-old baby is doing this, to just give my phone to someone, not put too much pressure on breastfeeding. If it works out, it works out. And I do pray that it works out, and I'm gonna do what I can, but I am not gonna let myself feel like a failure if it doesn't work out. I'm really thankful to live in a time when there are other options. Getting out of the house more, I took so long to start doing things with Connor, to take him out, to go for walks. And that is something, since he's been about 2 months old, we get out of the house once a day. We do something once a day. It's been so good for us. And I love experiencing the world with him. He loves being out too. And so that's something that we always try to do together. Not compare my baby to other babies. Your baby is unique. And so often when I was dealing with that anxiety, it was because I thought this was normal, that someone else's baby was doing this, and why wasn't mine? God gave you the baby that you needed. You are the perfect mom for your baby. Focus more on prepping meals, for doing things to help me postpartum versus focusing so much on the nursery and all the baby things. Ultimately, those newborn days, we didn't use a lot of stuff. Basically, your baby just wants you and milk, and that's pretty much it. You don't need all of the things, and I wish that I would have focused more on kind of prepping the freezer with more meals, for having people on deck asking for help, having a cleaner set up, things like that. I wish my focus was more on that versus all of the baby things specifically. Ask for help wherever you can. Don't feel like you are putting people out. People want to help you, and I can just say, from someone who's used to wanting to do things all by myself, you can't raise a baby by yourself, and you need help. So have people on deck and ask people when you need them. The amount of times I would text my mom in a panic asking for things. Surrounding myself with positive, realistic influences. I have really discovered a lot of people on Instagram that I love to follow, who, hearing realistic kind of advice and input from other moms, made me feel less alone. Hearing that people's babies also didn't sleep, you know, hearing that other babies also went through a witching hour, they dealt with whatever issue, made me feel less alone. And specifically, I really love Jess Hover on Instagram. I actually watched a ton of her videos when I was pregnant, but I wanted to share this post because I found this and it really resonated with me. It's kind of long, so you can skip over this if you don't care, but it says, when Eloise was a baby, I would cry in the evenings. I vividly remember feeling dread as the sun began to set because I was so afraid of the nights. My sleep was garbage. It was so hard for me to fall asleep because I was anticipating her night wakings. I rarely felt rested even when I did manage to sleep. My days blurred from one into the next, never feeling like there was a clear beginning or ending to anything. It all became one cloudy jumble. Weekends were no different from weekdays because the baby stayed the same no matter the day. I was nervous about long car rides, fearful of what I would do if she cried like crazy while I was driving. My life felt like it was on a timer. Everything was a calculation of how much I could do between nursing. There was no peace. I loved my baby, of course. I loved my husband. I was so thankful to be a mom, but at the same time, I was really struggling. I remember laying on my floor, Googling things, trying to find hope, searching for stuff like, will being a mom get better? Or how do I stay positive with a new baby? Honestly, the stuff I found was not helpful. I felt worse. There were a lot of Christian blogs that made motherhood sound so fluffy and golden. There were people on Instagram who made it look so dreamy and easy. I wished I were like them. It was such a life flip. My whole existence was different. To be very clear again, I loved Eloise, but I did not enjoy motherhood, and it made me feel broken. Fast forward to now, I'm 2 kids into this, and my second baby is 8 months old. I'm not sure what is more funny, the fact that I had another baby after feeling so messed up the first time, or the fact that somehow my YouTube channel became Mom Central. Of all the things I feel qualified to talk about, being a mom is way down near the bottom of my list. I'm not passionate about mom things. I don't care about brands of diapers, the effects of pacifiers, or how somebody feeds their baby. In the same way, I don't care about cats. I like people, so if people like cats or diapers, I'll care because they care, but I myself am neither a cat person nor a diaper person. Anyway, my main point in saying all this is just to know that there's a part of me that wants to reject being known primarily as a mom on social media. But when I look back to what I needed after I had Eloise, I was so desperate for somebody to tell me I was normal, for feeling both love for my my kid and hate for my new role. I wanted someone to assure me it would get better, easier, and more fun. And since I am now convinced that being a mom is awesome, even though it sucks sometimes, I'm choosing to settle into this mother of the internet role a bit more. I want to be who I wish I had 4.5 years ago. So for anybody who is struggling a bit to adjust to your new role as a mom, you're not alone. It does get better, easier, and more fun. You are not crazy, your kid is beautiful, you are amazing, and even though the days feel long, this year will fly by. Do what you can to pursue joy in the meantime. And I remember reading that one night when I was up in the middle of the night and just being flooded with tears because I needed to hear that. And oh my goodness, you guys, now at 5 months, I cannot say how much I love being a mom. I think for me, when he started laughing and smiling and really interacting with me, and I feel such a close bond with him. I remember someone once told me that kind of the clouds start to peel back at 3 months, and then the sun comes out at 4 months, and then you have the 4-month sleep regression maybe, so they kind of go back into the clouds. But things are so much better. I truly love my life, and every time I am just with my baby now, who is a happy, you know, loving sweetheart angel, I can't picture my life without him. Our family just feels so full, and if you would have told me that during that first month, I would never believe you. I know it's hard, but it does get better. It really, really gets so much better. And now I'm going to rapid fire answer some questions because Aiden has Connor for a walk. I think they're about to come back. Best postpartum essentials you actually used. Again, I really liked those Freedom Mom shorts. I loved the Perry bottle too. That was nice for peeing. That was another question I got. How was peeing postpartum? I was so scared to pee. It took my body so long to do it because I was so nervous. But eventually I did it and it was perfectly fine. But I did like having the angled Perry bottle. I used the one they gave us at the hospital, but I would recommend having that. And then just those ice packs were nice. And then probably just a variety of pads or diapers because I don't think you'll know what you want until you have a baby. How has intimacy been since having your baby? Has it changed? If so, how? This was also something I was scared about because I had heard that it can be really painful after having your baby. And I will just say my experience felt completely normal. I didn't really have a ton of pain, but I know that's not everyone's story. And I do think that if that's something you're struggling with and you are having that it can take some time to kind of heal and give yourself time. I gave myself plenty of time in this area because yeah, you go through so much having a baby, and yeah, it just takes time to heal. How do you manage your marriage now that you have a beautiful baby boy? I wanted to touch on this because this was definitely something that was shocking to me. I think especially if your baby is, you know, a baby who wakes up more often in the night, because a lot of times we're doing shifts, and even to this day I go to bed at 9 o'clock every night because I try to get as much sleep as I can. I remember one night just feeling so close to my husband and that we were kind of under the same roof all day, especially because he had about 3 weeks of paternity leave, which I'm so thankful for. I don't know what I would have done without that, but feeling so distant, just feeling like ships passing in the night and wondering if things would ever feel the same again, and physically feeling so close to him, but just also feeling so distant at the same time. And I also just want to say that that is also normal. It's totally a life change having a baby. Now we're at the point where we can go on a date, we can put the baby down and hang out, even if it's just a date at home, and really have that time to bond again. But I did feel really lonely that kind of first bit, and still at times because it is different, but I do think it's so important to keep prioritizing your marriage, but at the same time giving yourself grace if it kind of feels like it's on the back burner at the start, because you have this, you know, brand new life that you are totally responsible for, you're keeping alive, and you've both never done it before, and that can come with some bickering. You're sleep deprived, you're confused, and you know, just trying to ask for grace every single day was so important. We'd like to say that we would always just forget what was said in the middle of the night because it can be hard, but at the same time I feel so much closer now because we've gone through this together. And I'm gonna get emotional again, but just the way that he supported me throughout my postpartum experience, truly don't know what I would have done without him. He is my best friend, and just how much he has been such a good team with me in raising our child together, it's just so special. As a first-time mom, do you ever worry about baby not being able to breathe while sleeping? That was something that I was so scared about, and I would always have these fears of when I would fall asleep, I would wake up and I would think that I would fall asleep while holding my baby. And we weren't co-sleeping or anything, but this was something that I just always feared I did. And I looked it up and it's actually completely normal, but it's terrifying. Was it hard dealing with postpartum hair loss? I definitely did have postpartum hair loss, and I experienced it a lot in my eyelashes. I think basically all my eyelashes are gone. I had hair shedding before I had my baby, and so that wasn't really something that caught me off guard. Did notice quite a bit around the 3-month mark, but now it's not really something that I focus on. I really thought it was gonna be worse because I had dealt with it in the past. I didn't take any like supplements or anything. I did keep taking my prenatals for a while, especially if you're breastfeeding. It's important to do that. Yeah, I just got my hair cut and it feels a lot better. I would definitely recommend doing that if you are experiencing hair loss, because it does make it feel just so much thicker when you get it cut, and it really wasn't as bad as I expected. That is everything I want to answer. I'm pretty sure the boys just got back, and so if you have any other specific questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram. I am really in my DMs lately, responding to a lot of people while I'm nap trapped, and so I will most likely get back to you. But I just wanted to say, if you are pregnant, if you're about to have your baby, there's so much joy coming your way, and just because I struggled during this 4th trimester doesn't mean you are. If you do struggle, it's totally normal, and just know that you are not alone. I hope that this video was helpful. It gets so much better, and I'm so thankful for where I'm at. I love you guys, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bye.